Alright, then let's begin. Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passion, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence. John Adams. In today's speech, we're going to be taking a look at the facts and the evidence and what is actually happening in the status quo and how I will urge you for a negative balance. So let's just start off right at the top. I'd just like to clarify exactly what the negative team's plan is doing. Now, we stated in our last speech that there has been absolutely no economic aid since 2008. So any piece of evidence that they claimed was talking about economic aid actually has nothing to do with that because all of our evidence was from after 2008, so it has nothing to do with that. Second of all, my partner brought this up in our last speech, and I think the Affirmative team also misunderstood this. Let me read it again. It's specifically talking about, for example, the missile defense program. Quote, Congress and successive U.S. administrations have shown strong support for joint U.S.-Israel missile defense projects. U.S.-Israel missile defense cooperation has been authorized and appropriated in the Defense Authorization and Appropriation Bills. Really quickly, going to stop for a second and say that is not the same bill that FMF is in. Second of all, it goes on to say that missile defense cooperation is generally not considered a form of direct aid, but many U.S. and Israel observers consider it a vital component of the Israeli strategic relationship with the United States. So as we can see, missile defense and military cooperations are not a part of military aid. It has nothing to do with that, and when somebody in an article says military aid, it's not got anything to do with military cooperation. And also, let's just go ahead and talk about the goals of the Affirmative team. Their main thing is they want to increase a sense of maturity for Israel. But that's not going to happen when they're going to be losing above $750 million a year because of our aid to Israel. This isn't increasing the maturity of Israel in any way. For example, right now, Israel is the only nation that we give both military cooperation and military aid to. The only nation. Basically, they're kind of in this in-between stage where they're rich enough that they can cooperate with the U.S. because they're a really good cooperation partner because they're very technologically advanced in that sense. For example, the missile defense program, the Iron Dome program. But they're also not quite ready for completely ending aid because they're still reliant on U.S. aid at the moment because of the Buy U.S. requirement is hurting their industry. So that's basically the position Israel is in right now. But we're going to be graduating from that on more industrialized major nations, for example, Britain, that don't have military aid on a year-to-year basis. That's basically what we're doing, and it brings me to two main points. We're not stopping cooperation, and we are not stopping the U.S. from giving them aid in a time of war. For example, we give money to aid in a time of war. We do that all the time. But not on a year-to-year basis because that would just be ridiculous to say that they need aid from the United States on a year-to-year basis. So that's what we're doing with Israel. We are giving them a better sense of maturity. Now going on to the specific pieces of evidence, again, there hasn't been economic aid since 2008, so our evidence was not talking about that at all. So basically they dropped all of our arguments talking about that. I'll just go ahead and restate them. First of all, we said specifically that Israel is better off without aid. Second of all, that its value is not as high as it seems. Third, that they are losing $750 million a year. They responded to this argument by basically just saying that, well, it's not their money, so it doesn't matter. Well, actually, it's not the government losing the money. It's the Israeli industry losing the money. So it's not, they are losing their own money. And even if that they somehow proved that true, it's still a loss. It's still an economic loss to Israel. And they would not have that loss with the negative team's counter plan. Fourth, talking about how their competition and their reputation and how they're worse off with American aid. Again, they dropped all of these points. Moving on to the solvency arguments, again, we stated that they're causing causing Israel more harm than not. And they said that, they implied in cross-examination that it could be important for times of war or that Israel would need it in the future. But that's actually not true because we can always provide them aid when they need it. For example, the same thing we do with Britain. And again, we're also not stopping Israel from buying U.S. products. We're just not forcing them to and allowing the current contract to expire. So basically that just sums up the negative team's arguments. Really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and address the Netanyahu argument again, and just go ahead and read that quote again. This particular piece of evidence is from 2011, and I'd like to point out that the Affirmative team's piece of evidence was from 2004. Quote, even Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that foreign aid may do more harm than good, and proposed efforts to wean Israel off of American military aid payments. So for the reason that Israel is mature enough, we agree, Israel's mature enough to not need this aid. So we're letting the current contract expire and allowing them to benefit from U.S. aid by cutting the buy U.S. requirements and to wean themselves off aid. Thank you, and I urge a negative balance.
Please start the affirmative.